Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most pivotal events in all of human history, the Second World War. We're boiling down this absolutely huge global conflict to its core so we can really understand how it changed our world forever. And that right there is the big question we're going to explore. It's a question the world had to answer after years and years of destruction. And believe me, the answer still shapes our world today. To really get a grip on it, we're going to follow a story that unfolds in 3 acts. Yeah, this slide lays it out perfectly. See, the war wasn't just a bunch of battles. It was a whole story. We'll kick things off with the preload, what caused the war, then dive into the conflict itself, and wrap up with the aftermath, where the world literally tried to build a lasting peace from all the rubble. All right, let's jump right in. Our first act, well, it doesn't start with a big bang. Nope. It starts with the quiet crumbling of a promise. You gotta remember, after the war to end all wars, there was this real, desperate hope for a lasting peace. I mean, nations came together, they signed agreements, and they all promised to reduce their weapons. But this hope, it was built on a very, very fragile foundation. But here's the thing. Rising dictators in Europe, they didn't see these peace efforts as strength. They saw them as weakness. So they started pushing boundaries, rebuilding their armies, and grabbing territory, just testing to see how far they could go before anyone would dare to stop them. So what did the world do? Well, they tried a policy called appeasement. You have to understand, they were haunted by the memory of the First World War. So nations like Britain and France just kept giving the dictators what they wanted, just hoping it would stop another war. But all it did was prove that aggression worked, and it made them want to take even more. And while all this is happening, what's the United States doing? Well, it's looking inward. It passed these neutrality acts, basically making a legal promise to stay out of another European war. The thinking was, hey, we've got 2 big oceans to protect us. But the conflict, it was just getting way too big to ignore. And that, of course, brings us to our second act. Because, as you can imagine, staying out, well, it eventually became impossible. The conflict just exploded, and it dragged the entire world in. Okay, so once the attack on Pearl Harbor pulls the U.S. into the fight, everything changes. The American home front completely transforms. This wasn't just a war for soldiers anymore. No way. It was a war for everybody. Propaganda posters went up to rally support, regular citizens bought war bonds to help fund the military, and families rationed everything from sugar to gasoline. It was a massive effort, with women and minorities stepping into these huge new roles in factories, building the very machines that would help win the war. So you've got this war raging across 2 totally different massive theaters. Over in Europe, the Allies are fighting this huge land war against Nazi Germany, all building up to the incredible D-Day invasion. But in the Pacific, it's a completely different kind of fight against the Empire of Japan. It was a brutal island-hopping campaign, capturing these key islands one by one just to get closer to the Japanese mainland. But you know, this war wasn't just about fighting over land. It was about ideology. And as the Allied forces started pushing into Europe, they uncovered the full, unimaginable evil of the Holocaust, the systematic, industrial-scale murder of 6 million European Jews and millions of other victims by Nazi Germany. So how does a world even begin to heal from that level of pure horror and devastation? How do you even start to build a future? Well, that's what our third and final act is all about, the aftermath. So when the guns finally go silent in 1945, the world is left with this enormous question. And it wasn't just a question for presidents and prime ministers, it was for all of humanity. How do we make sure this never, ever happens again? And the answer, it turns out, came in 2 really powerful steps. First step, accountability. The Nuremberg trials set a brand new standard that said leaders could be held responsible for crimes against humanity. The whole "I was just following orders" excuse, not going to fly anymore. The second step, cooperation. The United Nations was created to give the world a new place to talk, to maintain peace, and to protect basic human rights. And if you look at this timeline, you can see just how fast all of this happened. I mean, it's really incredible. And that speed, it just shows you how urgently the world wanted to build a better, safer future from the ashes of the old one. Okay, so after all of that, all the devastation, the fighting, the rebuilding, what's the big lesson here? What's the one thing we absolutely have to take away from World War II? You know, the lesson was learned at a staggering cost, over 70 million lives. And it was this: You just can't achieve security by yourself, in isolation. It has to be a shared global responsibility. And that gets us to the most crucial point of all, peace. It isn't the default state of the world. It's not something that just happens if you leave things alone. It's fragile, and it's something that has to be actively built and maintained and protected by every single generation. And that right there, it brings the lesson of the past right to our doorstep, right here in the present. The systems built back then are still with us, sure, but so are the challenges. And it leaves us, you and me, with a pretty vital question to think about. Knowing everything we know now, what does it take for us to protect peace today?